Welcome to Tomorrow Makers, where we explore how we learn, live, work, and play now and in the future. I'm Carlos Ramos.
And I'm Summer Beatty.
And I think we've both had too much coffee this morning.
Speak for yourself. I'm good. I only had one. Do I have extra energy?
You are. You were like on fire today. You're very animated, very physical.
Good.
The hands are raising. Oh my gosh, it was a blast.
It was so much fun. We have Joe Dibucci with us today, and he is a faculty building construction instructor. And he was bringing the passion, so I was just a mirror of that, I guess. He loves what he does. It was such a great conversation.
It was. And the funny thing was, I think we go like 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like, I look over Joe's like, okay, I'm here. You and I are just blah, 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 blah.
We talked too much, you think?
I don't know. I think we had some fun. So.
Oh, you mean our energy was too much?
Energy might have been.
He said he had coffee, too.
He did.
He's so chill.
He is chill.
Yeah.
He's got the little concrete trinkets that he has that, probably keep him grounded.
Maybe we need crystals.
Maybe.
That'll slow me down a little.
No, we don't need you slowing down.
So I guess you can kind of understand the energy here today. I can't even talk straight. So we hope you have fun with this one and enjoy it just as much as we did.
All right, so enough about us. Who do we have today?
We have Joe Dibucci with us today. Welcome.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me here.
So when he walked back into the office, everybody that passed by was like, oh my goodness, we saw him as a student and now like flash forward, here he is again. Like he's famous.
Yeah, it happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's good to be back. Felt like I never really left,
Is that, okay. I guess that's a natural question. So what brought you back? I mean, that's an interesting. Yeah, we love it. We're not trying to. No, I mean, it's almost like everybody says, okay, Penn College feels like a home. It's a family. I don't know if that's part of it. Like, because you didn't grow up around here, right?
No, I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, about 3.5 hours away. I didn't really know anything about the school until my brother decided to come here. And then I finally, learned more about it, heard about the new program coming up, which was the concrete science. I was one of the first students enrolled about 2 years before it was even able to be enrolled. And then, that's all it.
Yeah, wow. So you graduated
2018,
Okay.
No, it was 2020. COVID got affected.
Gotcha.
Right at the beginning of COVID. Somewhere around there.
Everybody knows about that.
Yeah. It's all blur.
Right.
And you came for the concrete and stayed for a 4-year completion, right?
Yeah. So I started with the building construction 2-year CB program, associates. And then after my 2 years was done, I jumped right into the concrete. And then I had some free time, free classes available to take. So then I had a minor in sustainable design as well.
Okay.
And then all that together is a bachelor of applied technology. So it was cool to learn about the construction and then get into a building material such as concrete, really learn about that, and then also learn about sustainable design at the same time, trying to use all three of the degrees to kind of create, a different building process or just to be able to combine them all. It was really a good experience, I guess, as a student.
So you graduated, then you went into industry. I heard maybe there was a family business involved.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So the family business, so what really got me into concrete, I mean, ever since I was a young boy, always going to the job site with my dad. We have a family business. It's been around since 1956. So my great-grandfather started it. My grandfather worked in it alongside his brother. And then now my father and uncle are in it. And now the next up is me and my brother. We're fourth-generation concrete finishers, some would say. Small business in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But ever since I was a young kid, really going on the job, just seeing this concrete truck show up, gray stuff come out and then get hard. Didn't really know much more than that other than, having to work quick, especially in the summertime, mostly when I worked. And it's a perishable product. You got one chance. It's a challenge, but it's enjoyable if you can master it and work efficiently. The big thing is teamwork when it comes down to concrete or really anything. But when concrete's such an important I don't want to say important, just like I said, perishable product to where you only get one chance. So it's not like you can go and tear it out and redo it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, and we've done it before, but it's not fun.
No, I would say look around you. I mean, you can just look out the windows here and just how much concrete we can see. I mean, there's some brick too, but there's, concrete and asphalt, but I see a lot of concrete. And I think anyone, anywhere you are, you look around and I mean, it's modern civilization would not be possible without that material.
Just imagine a world without concrete. I mean, what do you guys think the biggest, thing you'd be missing without concrete? What would you see more of?
Oh, I've been waiting for this moment. Seriously, no one has asked us any questions on this podcast so far. We are now at what, episode 14, 15?
16? Maybe it's about time
like there's a bell, there's something, you win a
Ding,
free
ding,
prize.
ding.
I have been, the other day I was thinking, no one's asked us any questions. I love it.
Gotta keep
I don't have an answer for you, but I'm just so excited that someone asked us a question. Sorry, what was the question? What do we think what would we miss?
Yeah, imagine a world without concrete. I mean, what would it affect in your day-to-day activities?
I don't know. The first thing I thought of was I like to run, and I'd much rather run on dirt than pavement. So I don't know that I'd miss that. But I mean, heck, imagine driving to work and not having a solid surface to drive on, how rough that would be.
Yeah.
In the buildings that we're working in. Everything, like you said, you look around, everything is concrete. What would our building be like that we're in if we didn't have concrete?
Oh my gosh. It's this building. I mean, the floors are probably concrete underneath here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The walls are definitely concrete.
Foundation, probably.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
We'd be slowly sinking into the ground day after day if we didn't have concrete.
But you and I bike. Now, there's a lot of asphalt that we're biking on, but every single bridge we go over,
that's true.
Concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you'd have to ford all those creeks and rivers.
Well, the bridge, yeah. How would we get from, like, I live in South Williamsport, and I can't get over here without a bridge. I mean, I could. It would be a lengthy process. I would need a boat.
I think the first one was wooden.
Oh,
yeah.
It's no longer here.
It's no longer here.
It's the remains that you see in the river when you look down. So yeah, it's solid.
Yeah. It's good insight. I'm glad I flipped the script there.
I like it. Okay, now that you've done that, don't do it again. It makes me a little uneasy. I'll start asking our guests, can you please provide me the questions you're going to ask me in advance like I will for you?
I just thought it would be a good thing for the audience to think about.
Oh, you're right.
Really,
yeah.
Think of like a day-to-day activity without concrete. It's just hard to imagine.
So that's everyone's homework. You now have to think about this, hit pause, and then I want you to let us know by email, podcast@pct.edu.
Somebody send us an email.
Yeah, somebody send something.
We've not gotten any emails that I know of.
I was so worried
about. We did,
about.
sorry, because we didn't respond because we didn't see them. Yeah, let us know what you're thinking about concrete. And I think from a career perspective, you were exposed to concrete because you grew up with it. What about, that is honestly, like, it's, people think about being the standard professions. Concrete science is not something that usually comes up, right? Like career fairs, I don't know if you've been involved in a career fair yet or anything like that, but I don't think students out there that wouldn't come across their radar, right? Like, who thinks of that?
Yeah, if they're not really shown it, I mean, they don't really have the opportunity to work with it. That's where it kind of goes into the high schools or the technical schools affiliated with the high schools. They have to start teaching it to really let the students know that, hey, this is an option for you for a career. It's one of the biggest industries out there. It's the second most used material, second to water.
Oh,
okay, so water.
I knew that answer. Yes.
Yeah. I could ask you that one.
Yes. For those not watching the podcast, because you can't, Summer immediately raised her hand. Me. I know.
I had that actually blew my mind, though.
Yeah.
It was like the second most consumed. It was the word consumed was used to water, and we all know how much we're water, basically.
Yeah.
You look around the globe, water's everywhere. And just second place is concrete.
And you use a lot of water in the concrete. So, I mean, that's taking a lot of the concrete, the water too, adding into it, I guess. So, Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about. And there's just so many jobs available that people just don't think of. I mean, just getting into testing the concrete or mixing the concrete or pouring the concrete, or there's a lot of different avenues for people that just don't know. And they're normal avenues as well. So like management, stuff like that, accounting, things like that. Having that basic knowledge of concrete as a building material can really allow students to go a lot of places in the industry. It's just letting them know that and getting the word out there. So we're really trying to work towards communicate with the CTC schools and technical schools, and making sure the students are at least getting some sort of intro to the product or the material to see if that's an interest to them for a future,
What's the science part of it? I mean, before I knew about the program here, I would have thought, well, concrete's a substance. It's one thing. It's what's on the sidewalk. It's what's in the brick. It's everything's this one thing, but it's not.
Yeah, it's so much more than that. When it comes down to the science of it, you really learn about the mix design. So like what goes into it, what creates the reactions that cause the concrete to get hard, things like that. You learn about the science as well as making concrete. You learn how to make your own concrete, which is really interesting to me. And then you can really manipulate it and do some science, some experiments, I guess you could say, creating different mix designs and things like that. That's what really caught my attention, was the ability to kind of make your own mix design and have the ability to impact the industry. Because, every day or every week I have this little app on my phone where it gives me articles about specific things, concrete and stuff like that. And I just scroll through it and read articles. And it seems like every week or every couple weeks, there's just a new school from a new area creating a new, more sustainable mix design or something they've used as a binder other than cement. There's so much new technology coming out of the industry. It's very interesting to be a part of it because it's an ever-changing material. You can be a part of, new stuff, new things in the industry to, you can either be creating it or you can just be helping and being a part of it. So that's what really interests me in the material is it's still a new product. Like there's so many things you can do to it to really affect it and manipulate it for certain uses and things like that.
To help out the audience, for those who haven't worked with concrete or really don't know what's in concrete, my understanding, there's three base materials to it. There's sand, there's gravel, and there's cement. You just mentioned. Can you confirm that and then let us know how that all changes in these different uses and formulations? Like how does it change for a sidewalk versus a vertical wall?
Yes. So when it comes down to your mix design, like you said, there's those materials as well as water. So water is really important. And the amount of water really affects it. So the amount of water and the amount of cement, which is creating your binder, that really affects the strength. So depending on what you're trying to pour, if you're trying to pour a higher strength mix, you really want to keep that water content down. And then if you want, you can always increase that cement content, and that's going to increase your strength. When you start to increase your cement content, then the sustainability factor comes into play. Everyone's really trying to get away from the cement, and they're coming out with new types of cement that are more sustainable and better for the environment. They kind of keep the global carbon dioxide emissions down just from the production of the cement. So a lot of people are trying to figure out different materials to use as the cement or creating new types of cement. So what's really interesting with the cement is this is fairly recent, about the past 2 years or so. It's really getting into effect right now into the industry. Is there's a new cement, and considered typically this cement, the general cements like a type 1, type 1-2 cement. This cement's considered a type 1L cement. So the type 1-2 had a limit of about 5% limestone powder. Okay, so I guess I got to get into a little bit of the...
That's okay, we were expecting it. Yeah.
So with the cement production, you get limestone, okay, and then you heat that up. And then as it's going through the kiln, heating up, you start to have those chemical reactions. You start to emit carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. And then also the process of heating up the kiln takes up a lot of energy as well as carbon dioxide emissions. So what they're doing is instead of using more cement, they're cutting back on the total cement content and they're putting a limestone powder in instead. So up to 15% is what's allowable right now. So what's happening right now in the industry is there's this new material coming out, and all these cement suppliers are starting to do it because it's more sustainable, okay? Because they're not heating up as much material to get the cement. They're just using a limestone powder, kind of like a filler, I guess you could say. So it's more sustainable, and then it's also cost savings on them because they don't have to use as much cement to some degree, I guess you could say. I'm not a cement supplier. I don't really know that for sure, but that's just, in theory, would make sense. So what's happening is all these cement suppliers are changing their cement. Well, whoever gets their cement, they're kind of being forced to change to this Type 1L. Like, they're making all the concrete ready mix plants basically switch to Type 1L. And so it's the same concept. They say it's a 1-to-1 ratio, same concept material wise. But what's happening is a lot of these contractors are sometimes having a hard time. Different finishing techniques are required, different wait times, things like that. The hardest part is when you start messing with the cement content, it all depends on the type of limestone from the beginning. So the natural limestone, depending on what constitutes that limestone powder, is going to manipulate and affect the mix. So right now it's kind of all over the place. It really depends on your manufacturer, I guess you could say, but it is more sustainable because they're taking that cement content out and they're using more so a limestone filler powder to be a more sustainable material. So something like that, I mean, that's brand new in the industry. It's really cool to be a part of that. I mean, this is going to be in the industry for the next, however long. And the really interesting thing is like Canada and overseas and like Europe, they've been using it for the past 30 or 40 years. And they've actually figured out how to use up to 30 to 40% of the limestone powder. And so we're having a hard time with up to 15%. And then when you look over there and you're like, okay, they know something we don't know, or it's just a different material. I mean, it really comes back down to the raw material. Where are you getting that material? Things like that. So it's really interesting. So the mix design kind of got way off topic on that.
I'm glad you brought up sustainability, because that is definitely something that a lot of people look at the footprint of, okay, we've got a lot of this, material out there, and, there's an impact on the environment. So, there's this interesting avenue of let's change the concentration, let's try to reduce the impact that way. And then you also have to ask, like, okay, if we weren't using concrete, what else would we be using in its place? And then what's the impact of that material, right?
Yeah. It really comes, when you talk about sustainability, when I think about concrete, I think about the durability. If you have a very durable material that lasts 500 to 1,000 years, that's very sustainable. If you're trying to make a material that's sustainable, but it only lasts 50 years, what's the good in that? Kind of going back to the Romans, they made Colosseum, the Pantheon, stuff like that. That's still standing from thousands of years ago. They don't go through the harsh winters that we do, but still, in contrast, that was a very sustainable project, some would say, based off just the durability of it. So, yeah, I guess sustainability, durability, but you can really, if you want to manipulate that mix design, like I was saying, and try to make it more sustainable, like the cement, and then getting into like the aggregate, newer technology they're trying to implement is using crushed concrete. So actually getting old concrete, crushing it up, and then using that in the mix design as the aggregate or the stone, some would say. So that's another avenue of trying to make a more sustainable mix, things like that. All these things really interest me, trying to help the industry, because it is one of the most used, if not the most used, it is the most used building material out there. But trying to figure out how to make it more sustainable, since we use so much of it, and it's not really going to go anywhere unless we go back to making mass masonry. But the time it would take to do that just doesn't seem economical, I guess you could say.
Well, and it seems like being in an instructor position here at the college, you're in a position to make change on a higher level, because you're not one person out in the field, with the sustainability hat on trying to do the right thing, but now you're influencing students. So how does that trickle down into your instruction and maybe even the curriculum?
Yeah, so I mean, the influence, I mean, day one with the students, I try to give them like a brief introduction about the concrete, like the newer technology. That usually interests a lot of people, a lot of students, and try to hook them in the beginning to say like, oh, yeah, this is a very interesting material. Like you could do a lot of things with it. One thing that I'm actually just starting to do in practice now is I'm starting to print out some of those articles I was telling you about and then hand them to my class in the beginning of the class and doing like a little short, discussion about it. Like, hey, this is a new material product. Just wanted to show you guys, thought it was real interesting, and so I got some good feedback from that. I think I'm going to keep doing that. Just trying to influence, like you said, trying to influence the industry and affect. So hopefully they can influence others and just kind of like a snowball effect. So that's kind of what I enjoy, I guess, and kind of not just the sense of influencing, but also assisting and helping these students to get into the industry and be comfortable where they're at and be doing what they want to do, connecting them with a correct, career path, I guess you could say.
Do you have a lot of students who went to career and technical education courses, like they went to CTCs or anything like that, or you have a unique introduction to the area that you ended up in because of your family business, but I'm just was thinking about where those students maybe came from, how they were introduced to the career path of concrete science.
So what's the interesting thing is a lot of the students that we're getting aren't having that. They don't have that background of going through a CTC or anything. They're just coming straight out of high school, and what's happening a lot is they're coming here typically for like a building construction because they don't know concrete. And then with the building construction, they take a general concrete course. That's typically what I'm teaching. And I'm trying to, like I said, influence them in some way. And then typically we get some students that are interested in the program just from that course. And then they usually tag it on with their CB building construction degree. And then they're able to get like a dual degree with 2 associates. Which a lot of students, the paths are kind of going that way. And the career, like the industry really likes that because you're having the building construction background as well as the concrete background. So like framing and things like that come in handy. So yeah, I guess not a lot of students really come from CTC because my other fellow colleague, Frank Reber, he did some research into that about all our fellow past students. And he said not a lot are really coming from the CTC. So we were really gauging trying to go after the CTC schools to kind of educate them with the concrete science. But our new avenue, we're going to try to go after kind of like the high school counselors and kind of talking about them because they really influence the high school students and just telling them about the opportunity for them and just in the industry. And it's good, really good career opportunities for growth and things like that. So yeah.
And it's not like Penn College saying, we selfishly want you to come here for this program because we want students. It's the industry contacting us, right? And saying, those employers saying, where are these graduates? We want more graduates. Yeah. That's how it's been. I remember talking to Frank a few years back. I'm sure it's the same, right?
Yeah, same thing.
You still have employers and these industry members saying,
yeah, like I want 2 students. Can I get 2 students this year? Or like, can I get students for internships, things like that? And it's like, we don't have any more students left. We need more students. So,
right.
So
the opportunities are there. If someone is listening, a parent, a high school student, somebody looking for a career move. I mean, it sounds like that's an awesome opportunity. Yeah,
lots of opportunity. All 100% placement rate. All the past students in the degree, they're all in jobs right now. And they're all enjoying it. They're all kind of all over the place in the industry, which is really cool. Just kind of getting their experience and whatnot. And yeah, it's cool to see where they go. And I still keep in contact with a few. So
all over the place in terms of all over the country, all over the place in terms of they're in different industries or
so a little bit of both. Yeah, it really depends on where they traveled. Or a lot of companies, like they might be located in Pennsylvania, but they might travel around the nation doing specific jobs and stuff like that. So it really depends on the company and then also the industry. So some are in ready mix, some are in the contracting area, some are doing like quality control, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what type of positions they end up taking after college, or oftentimes before they're even finished. For example, this construction firm is charged with creating a bridge. So this individual with a concrete science background will be brought in to make recommendations on the mixture that's appropriate for it. Or I'm just guessing here. Is this?
Yeah, so it really depends on the company and how they really want to treat the new hires. A lot of companies are putting them through some sort of training program, and they're realizing they have that general idea of concrete, what it is, how it works, and they're kind of grooming them into more of a management, project management, to understand the concrete and be able to lead people and have that general background knowledge to be able to understand the mixture, and then also just understand working with people and kind of leading them. So that would be one avenue. Another avenue would be quality control, so testing concrete. So a lot of people are doing that, to where before the concrete gets delivered to certain jobs, they have to get tested to be within specific specs. So that would be another avenue. And that can get into the mixed designs and doing mixed designs and figuring out what type of, how much cement's going in, how much stone, sand, things like that. And then that typically will lead to kind of a batch plant management. So you kind of have to know how to do quality control to kind of work as a manager on a batch plant. So we actually do that through our program. We do a testing course, and we actually let our students, they get a certification in testing, ACI grade 1 field technician. So that's a good opportunity for them. A lot of students are going that way. But there's just so many opportunities for them. And learning in the program, you kind of learn all the different industries, and then you kind of get to choose which way you want to go. There's a lot of different avenues.
And it seems like, compared to somebody who's, maybe fresh out of high school, that would just jump into a position like this, that they would have all of this, somebody coming to Penn College or having a degree in concrete science would come in with this background. You said people are going into management, and they're looking for leaders. Mm-hmm. So they've got the technical side of things, but then that opportunity to lead a team or to be in management administration. So they've kind of got both sides covered. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're getting real world experience, which is great, especially when it comes down to management and things like that.
Yeah.
And just having that background knowledge, general knowledge and understanding concrete as a building material.
And coming out that first year, they're making really good salaries, right?
Yeah, they're up there. They're 60, 65 plus, if not more. Really depends on the company. A lot of companies are paying for people to move to certain places. Some companies are actually looking into reimbursing schooling. So if they get an intern, they really like the intern, and the intern still has a year left, they might say, hey, we'll help pay for a credit or a couple credits of your courses, just to say, hey, you're going to come back and work for us. So yeah, the salary's definitely there. It's a great opportunity. It's not always just about the money.
Right. Yeah, no, you gotta love what you do, but if you can get compensated for doing what you love to do, that's a bonus.
Yeah, the big thing is the industry is just getting old. So a lot of people are retiring, and they need to fill the shoes of people that are retiring. And if they can have someone that has that general knowledge and that hands-on knowledge, they really enjoy that. They like that. The companies are enjoying having students that have that, hands-on, getting their hands dirty, that attitude, I guess you could say. And then also having the background knowledge. I mean, you're learning best of both worlds. So it's just good for them. And then the salary, that's like a bonus. That's how I look at it. It's okay, I'm enjoying this real much. And then I'm also, getting paid pretty well.
And you said stacking that, the two associates, it's not like you take 2 years of one, 2 years of another. You stack that and you can get it done in 3 years, right?
Yeah, typically 3 years. And then some students, if they're in the CB, or if you take the CB and you want the BRM, which is the residential management as well, that would be a 4-year. And some students are doing that as well as the concrete science, and typically getting done in about 5 years. So coming out with 2 associates and then also a bachelor in the management side of things, which is also great to have,
Right. And then you mentioned the applied technology bachelor's degree, which that can be completed online. That portion of it, or is that still mostly on campus?
So the applied technology, as in the bachelor's, you're saying?
Yeah.
So the concrete science itself is kind of like a hybrid course. So when you talk about the concrete science, it's kind of like a half-half. When it comes down to Bachelor of Applied Technology, that was just kind of me encompassing my 2 associates.
Okay,
and
so
then
you kind of
also
packaged it all
adding
together.
on my minor, because the minor was needed for the higher level courses. And then that was just an opportunity for me to learn more about sustainability,
Okay.
kind of solar panels and things like that. So
I think the minors are something people don't often think about. I mean, at least here at Penn College, we have all of these different opportunities in terms of bachelor's and associates and dual degrees. But I think minors get lost in the shuffle. I don't know how many students are, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I feel like we don't talk about minors enough. It's a great way to sort of curate that degree that you want without having to stay an extra year or something like that.
yeah, and then if you have, like I said, kind of like having a collaboration of all your degrees, you kind of get to look at it in a different perspective. When I did my minor in sustainable design, the first semester, I had some classes. And so like these students in architecture, they're like in block or like sections. So like they all know each other. And so then I come in there, this concrete guy, and everyone's kind of like looking at me like, who's this guy? Like, where's he coming from? I'm like, oh, I'm doing a minor in sustainable design. So a lot of these students had like ability to work on like AutoCAD or the using the computers and more experience than me, I guess you could say, because I didn't take the intro classes like they did. So a lot of the work they were doing on the computer, I'm over there just hand drawing like all these like design, all these designs. But I just had a different perspective. I mean, a lot of my sustainable projects in that course, it was a community planning course, I really implemented concrete. Like I tried to find the most sustainable concrete. I was like, yeah, my sidewalks are made out of this concrete that actually creates a less polluted area and with the type of mixture it is. And so I found it online, learned about it, and then, implemented it in my class. So that was cool. A lot of the students I think they thought I was kind of concrete crazy, I guess. Just everything was concrete. So yeah, it was cool.
Now you mentioned community. Our students actually go out and do community projects too, right?
Yeah. So we actually, in the concrete fundamentals course, which is the BCT 238, that's like the intro course to concrete. So we do a lot of on-campus pours. So if you guys look around the campus, a lot of the concrete poured is typically the school, typically the students. If the concrete's falling apart, that wasn't us. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to experience the real world experience for the students is great. A lot of students enjoy it. Some students, aren't the biggest fans of it because they think it's like a free labor type thing. But they really have to look at it in the sense of this is experience, real world experience, and you have no like liability. The students have no liability. That's kind of all on me. You know what I mean? Like me trying to make sure everything goes smooth and no one gets hurt and the concrete's good and straight and flat, things like that. But it's really, the challenge for me was trying to make it enjoyable for the students that viewed it as labor. So what I started to do, at least in the classes, was I started to put them in like teams and create some sort of like competition amongst the students and say, hey, who's going to have the straightest sidewalk or section of sidewalk, and created that competition within the classroom to kind of get those students more excited and actually want to do the work and do it at a high level and create a good product and be proud of it. I mean, these students are going to come back in 10, 20 years and they're going to be like, hey, I did that sidewalk.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's a nice looking sidewalk.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
I do that still. I mean, when I was a student, I remember a couple sidewalks we did, and I'm just like, yeah, I remember I did this. Or, I was a teacher's assistant for the one, and I just was one of my proud moments where that was my first opportunity to kind of show students as a student, how to pour concrete. We did a specific technique on the sidewalk. And every time I drive by, I kind of, peek over. I'm like, how's that sidewalk doing over there? Oh, it looks good. Okay, good.
So now I'm going to have to go walk around campus, identify all the different techniques and see if I can find those patterns. And, I'll watch the students as they're pouring and I'll
do they sign a little corner? Like when your parents are pouring concrete at home, they're like, okay, you can put your finger in there. So it's in there forever.
So there are a couple sidewalks where we stamped the concrete science. It just says concrete science, PCT. So there's a couple. I think there's one by Kimball's that they've done. but we're going to try to do that more often. We don't do it as with the stamp that we had broke, so we kind of have to make a new one. But it's good to do that, and kind of that's a sense of, being proud of your work. You're showing it off, like, hey, we did this. And I hope that concrete lasts a long time, back to the sustainability, durability. How long is it going to last? So.
And it's not all just completely functional concrete, right? I know there was a club, it's been a few years, but they were making like decorative stones that some pieces, like they glowed in the dark, or there were little flecks of color in. So there's an opportunity to be creative.
Yeah, decorative. Right? I mean, the aesthetic opportunity with concrete as a building material, because you get the aesthetic ability as well as the structural ability. So then that's where you get into making furniture, tables, things like that. That's something that really interested me, and I enjoy doing that in my free time, things like that, trying to mess around, make some sort of artsy looking crazy concrete table or something. But yeah, there was a club that was the Concrete Design Club. So as I was a student, I actually was the one that started that. And now I'm full circle back. I'm actually the advisor for that club. So it's great to kind of see that and kind of see it still living. After I graduated, there were very minimal amount of students in the club. So I was a little worried, but I helped out as I graduated, kind of like a mentor in the industry. And then they had some great leaders that kind of took charge, and they continued it. And I came back, and they were still kicking. So,
nice.
So yeah.
Do they have any projects coming up? Any fundraisers or anything like that?
So they're going to have a fundraiser in the spring. It's going to be a succulent plant fundraiser. So they're making little concrete succulent planters. We're going to be selling succulents. So that'll be a good fundraiser for the club. A lot of the fundraisers are geared towards just making money for the club to be able to purchase material for the club to kind of experience concrete in an aesthetic manner. So kind of create projects and things like that. So we have certain club members that have ideas, and then we say, yeah, let's try it out. What's the worst that can happen? It breaks. Okay, we'll try it again, So having the material for them and having the funds to be able to afford the materials for them to experiment, that's kind of like the go-to, I guess you could say, or what we're trying to strive for with the fundraisers. And then we try to do a lot of on-campus things. We built a pretty big table that's right outside the BTC in the concrete science. That was last semester. That was a big project. Had some ups and downs there. Had made a little mistake. The students made a mistake. I didn't catch it. I should have caught it. But we rebounded. We made it fix. The benches were a little too short. So when you sat down, you were probably 2 or 3 feet away from the tabletop. And so I'm like, okay, someone didn't think of this base design enough. So that was a learning lesson for me as, an instructor and for the students. I kind of told them, I was like, you got to double check, you really have to worry about a sketch, you really want to see that it's going to all work rather than just jumping right into it. But they did just jump right into it. The 2 students that kind of took charge of that, they were freshmen. They just joined the club. We told them we had this opportunity to build this table, and they were like, okay, first day they formed it up, and so it was great to see that and see the drive of them to do it. And then the mistake was kind of like a laugh, and I kind of laugh about it now because we fixed it and we made the benches a little bit bigger. So it's, usable now. It wasn't not usable. It just didn't look right. It wasn't really, wasn't right.
It's probably one of those things, though, as the creator of it, you see every little, issue with it. Whereas if one of us would walk by, we would be like, that looks fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think a lot of
nitpicking.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's all good. That's why we're good at what we do. But we just naturally see our mistakes because we're the ones that made them. Yeah,
that's how I feel. I'm really kind of like a perfectionist, so I try to make everything perfect. But like you said, it all really depends on your taste and your understanding. Some people are just not, I don't want to say oblivious to it, but they just don't see certain things like I see, I guess, with concrete especially. But projects, another big project that this club is doing, that's going to be hopefully started by the spring, depending on the weather, over by the field house. They're looking to do like an outdoor area, kind of calling it like the concrete playground, just a bunch of concrete. Okay. So you can make anything out of concrete. So we're going to try to make some cornhole boards, hopefully like a ping pong table exterior, some benches, probably like a table or so, kind of give the students a hangout spot. And then cornhole's a big thing. And so having something stationary there for the students, And so, yeah, that's something that's kind of in the works right now. And that's kind of one of the biggest projects for the spring for the club. So I'm excited to be a part of it and also kind of guide the students. As an advisor, I really don't like, doing a lot of the work. I kind of just want to guide the students. But sometimes they just need a little, kick in the butt, like, come on, let's get this started. So
I think we're going to wind things down, but I have to ask a couple questions here, and fun questions. So we were taking your photo and we jokingly said, you need a prop. And the photographer says, oh, it'd be cool if you were holding some concrete. And you were like, well, I do have some concrete with me. And I thought he's kidding. Still, he pulls out these crystals and concrete out of your pocket. You're just carrying them around. Like, can you tell us about that? I thought that was really fun. So, we kind of talked about crystals and what they mean to you. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
So I've always been interested in, rocks as well as crystals. And then, concrete is just kind of a bunch of rocks glued together with cement as the binder. So that's kind of something I like doing in my free time, is just kind of experimenting and just making knickknacks out of concrete. Big thing is necklaces. Usually always wearing a concrete necklace, just something about it. Makes me calm, and then sometimes I hold some concrete, not every day, but majority of the day. If you come up to me, I'll probably have a piece of concrete in my pocket.
So was it straight up concrete, or was there a crystal in it?
Yeah, so there's different crystals in it, depending on the type I made, I guess. But just being able to make different things like that, it's enjoyable to me. It calms me, soothes me.
It's very smooth. I'm holding it. It looks like a gear.
Yeah, I polished it. So I actually carve them and polish. That's actually carved with a Dremel. And then I polish them and kind of make them look pretty. That one still needs a little work, but it's just, something for me. So it doesn't gotta look real nice.
Yeah.
And what's the crystal that's in the middle?
So that one's selenite. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it correctly, but that's nice because it's just kind of see-through. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and you've got flecks of green and gold through here.
Malachite, and then, a little bit of gold. So a little bit of everything in there.
And then you had two of them.
Oh, you want to see the other one too?
Yes, if you don't mind. I mean, we're here for it, right?
You guys didn't know you were going to get a show. Huh?
No, of course. It's show and tell, and we're passing them around here, and we're feeling the surface.
Them.
Yeah.
You feel powerful when you hold them, right? Yeah.
And it's not heavy. If you're carrying this in your pocket, it's off. This is a pancake thin piece of concrete.
About the size of a challenge coin. Yeah. Four crystals in the middle, and then some flecks of other material.
Oh yeah, all sorts of stuff in there. Just all sorts of goodies. So
you love concrete if you're carrying it around in your pocket. I just thought that was really fun. I had to ask.
I can't get away from it, I guess. It's
That's good.
Yeah, I'm attracted to. A lot of people say crystals attract you too, so it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And concrete is a rock, so you can kind of say it's a crystal if you wanted to. And it's a man-made rock, so that's always how I look at it.
Very nice. So as we close things down, is there any parting words of advice you want to offer? Anything you want to leave our listeners with? Just that exclamation point on the conversation. There's a tall order here to fill.
I'd say, think about concrete as a material that can do a lot of things. If you're looking for a career, it's a great opportunity for you. And if you're interested in just playing with concrete, it's pretty fun to play with. You can make some things out of it. You kind of make it into certain shapes and stuff like that. It's kind of like baking a cake, but you're baking a rock.
I think that's the title for the episode.
Baking a rock?
It's kind of like baking a cake, but you're baking a rock.
Okay. That strays a bit away from my typical format of titles, but we can workshop that. Also, thank you so much for being with us today. We had a lot of fun. Lots of laughs.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks, guys, for reaching out.
Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Check out our show notes for bookmarks to your favorite sections and links to resources that we mentioned in today's episode.
You can also find past episodes and see what's on deck for upcoming ones at pct.edu/podcast.
And of course, we are open to your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions, so send those over at podcast@pct.edu.
It's been real.
Catch you next time.